It was Ryan Howard. 6 seconds left. Ryan Howard has the ball, getting guarded by Sophie Cunningham. Ryan Howard travels, right? I'm pretty sure this is a travel, right? This is a travel. One more time. This is a travels. Okay. Shoots it, airballs it right into Angel Reese's lap. And you know what everybody said? Collectively, ain't no fucking way. Ain't no fucking, bricked it. Point blank with a chance to win the game.
That was the moment. Game hanging in the balance. The ball falls directly into Angel Reese's hands at point-blank range, and Indiana somehow survives. But if you think that missed shot is the whole story, it isn't even close.
Guys, today, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever defeat the Atlanta Dream 95-91 in overtime. Caitlin Clark, 26 points, 9 assists, crushing it. Kelsey Mitchell keeps the streak alive with another 20-point game. And Michaela Timpson having an absolute career night. Michaela Timpson, she did it all today. She rebounded, she finished around the rim, and it seemed like the teammates...
Indiana walked out with a 95-91 overtime win. Caitlin Clark finished with 26 points and 9 assists. Kelsey Mitchell kept her scoring streak alive, and Michaela Timpson delivered one of the biggest performances of her young career. On paper, that sounds like a clean road victory. Watching it was completely different, because this game kept changing identities. For stretches, Atlanta looked more physical. At other moments, Indiana's offense looked stuck. Then Clark would suddenly attack the rim. Mitchell would create something out of nothing, or Timpson would appear around the basket and completely change the possession. And there's one detail from the final minutes that deserves a much closer look, because the biggest question after this win is not whether Indiana can survive games like this. They just proved they can. It's why, with the game on the line, they nearly moved away from the players who had actually been creating their best offense. We're coming back to that decision later, because it almost changed.
91, the Indiana Fever defeat the Atlanta Dream. The Atlanta Dream didn't have Breonna Jones. They didn't have Jordan Canada. However, their main players, Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard, they both played today. Angel Reese played as well. So this was a quality win, more of a quality win than beating the Dallas Wings without Jessica Shepard. I will say that. Caitlin Clark, 26 points, 9 assists, 9 for 20 from the field, 2-2 against the Atlanta Dream.
This wasn't Atlanta at full strength. Bree Jones and Jordan Canada were unavailable, and that matters when evaluating the result. But Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray were on the floor. Angel Reese was in the lineup. Indiana was on the road, and the Fever still had to earn this. Clark's 9 for 20 shooting line is especially interesting because the number doesn't fully explain how she controlled stretches of the game. She wasn't simply standing 30 feet away hunting threes. Indiana repeatedly put her in situations where Atlanta had to defend multiple levels of the floor. That distinction matters. For years, the easiest criticism to throw at a deep-range guard is that if you take away the three, you take away the player. Clark is making that argument harder to defend because when defenders crowd her shooting space, she is increasingly comfortable putting the ball down and going straight past them. And when the help arrives, that's where the 9 assists become just as important as the 26 points.
This season, in the third quarter, we saw Caitlin Clark take it to the rack. When she takes it to the rack, I don't think defenders are prepared for how quick Caitlin Clark is. I don't think defenders are prepared for how quick and how easy she can get to the rim. They're just not prepared for it. She does it pretty effortlessly, and she finishes at a high clip as well. I've said it. I've been beating the drum. Caitlin Clark this season has showed that she is an elite.
Watch what the defense is being asked to process. Give Clark space, and she can pull from well beyond the line. Get too aggressive at the point of attack, and she can turn the corner. Drop too far, and she's shown more comfort getting into that middle area. Send the second defender, and now Indiana's cutters and bigs start getting opportunities. That is why the phrase three-level scorer matters more than just sounding impressive. The value is not simply that Clark can score from 3 different locations. The value is that every additional threat changes how the defense has to position itself before the possession even develops. And Atlanta experienced that problem repeatedly. The Dream wanted pressure. They wanted physicality. They wanted Clark working for every touch. Yet Indiana increasingly found ways to make that aggression work against Atlanta. The fascinating part is Clark still looked capable of taking another step offensively. 20 field goal attempts sounds aggressive until you watch possessions where she gained an advantage and immediately moved the ball, instead of continuing downhill. That balance between playmaking and hunting her own shot is going to define a lot of Indiana's biggest possessions.
95-91. Indiana Fever went into halftime down 4. Third quarter picks up a little bit. The fourth quarter, the Atlanta Dream, I don't want to use the word choke, but they choked bad. They choked bad. Alicia Gray won on an absolute rampage in the third quarter. But the Atlanta Dream scored only 9 points. And usually we're the team that only scores single digits in a quarter. Watching the Atlanta Dream crumble in the fourth quarter reminded me of a couple of those playoff games last year where as soon as they got a little bit of pressure, as soon as things got close, as soon as things got tight, as soon as they didn't feel the momentum on their side, they crumbled. And in the fourth quarter...
Then came the swing. Indiana trailed by 4 at halftime. Atlanta had stretches where Alicia Gray looked capable of taking control. But the fourth quarter became a complete reversal, with the Dream managing only 9 points. 9. That is where this game stopped being about one spectacular highlight and became a pressure test. Late-game basketball removes all the comfortable stuff. Sets get blown up. Defensive intensity rises. Officials allow different levels of contact from possession to possession. Everybody in the building understands exactly who is supposed to receive the ball. That is why fourth quarters expose decision-making. Atlanta had opportunities, but their offense became increasingly difficult. Indiana, meanwhile, did not play a perfect closing stretch either. The Fever left the door open enough times that Atlanta still had a chance to win in regulation. That matters, because celebrating Indiana's resilience should not erase the mistakes that created the overtime situation in the first place. A better team takes lessons from both sides of a win.
Kelsey Mitchell, like I said, in 35 minutes, 20 points, 22 shots. Kelsey Mitchell had 18 points at the end of regulation, scored 2 points in overtime to keep his streak alive. Caitlin Clark, 26 points, 9 assists, 3 boards, 5 turnovers. Lexi Hull, 9 minutes, 2 rebounds. I'm not sure anymore with Lexi Hull. That might be a contract that we're just stuck with. That might be a contract that's just so bad, we're stuck with it. Michaela Timpson, 20 points for Michaela Timpson. 9 for 13. Like I said, last game was an anomaly. We never really saw Michaela Timpson had a stinker like she had last game. She bounces back today with a monster 20-point, 7 rebound.
And now we get to one of the most important developments from the entire night. Michaela Timpson, 20 points, 7 rebounds, 9 makes on 13 attempts. Those numbers jump off the page, but her fit beside Clark and Indiana's other creators may be even more interesting than the box score. Timpson does not need 20 isolations. She doesn't need the offense stopped so the team can manufacture touches for her. She creates value by understanding where open space is going to appear. That is an extremely useful skill next to a player like Clark. When Clark forces 2 defenders toward the ball, somebody behind that pressure has to know when to cut, when to stay away, and when to dive toward the rim. A player who moves too early can destroy spacing. A player who reacts too late wastes the advantage. Timpson repeatedly found that timing window, and defensively, Indiana could move her around. She had possessions involving Reese, Howard, and perimeter actions. That versatility gives Stephanie White more lineup possibilities because Timpson doesn't have to be hidden in one matchup. For a Fever team that has spent so much time searching for combinations that make sense around Clark, Boston, and Mitchell, that matters.
Michaela Timpson defensively is a Swiss Army knife, and offensively, folks, she can't shoot a mid-range, at least not that we know of. She can't shoot a 3, at least not that we know of. She can only finish around the rim. But she's so intelligent, she's so smart, she understands floor spacing on the offensive side so well that she manages to not clog the paint while Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark operate, while Aaliyah Boston operate. She manages to stay out of the way until the last possible second, and then she comes crashing in to finish around the rim. And we saw this last game. Caitlin Clark gave Michaela Timpson a lot of looks last game. That didn't stop this game. But what I did notice this game that I didn't see so much last game, Aaliyah Boston passed up on a good amount of shots. Even though she took 16, she passed up on a good amount of opportunities to get Michaela Timpson the ball.
This is the part of Timpson's game that is easy to miss if you only watch whoever has the basketball. She is not threatening the defense with pull-up jumpers or three-point shooting. So in theory, Atlanta should be able to shrink the floor whenever she is involved. Except Timpson understands that standing in the wrong place can be just as damaging as missing a shot. She waits, Clark attacks, Mitchell attacks, Boston gets a touch, the defense shifts, and then Timpson moves into the space that has just been abandoned. That is basketball intelligence. You don't need 5 shooters on the floor if the non-shooter understands how to manipulate space, but the timing has to be precise. The other development was Aaliyah Boston recognizing those openings and finding Timpson herself. That can become important because Indiana's offense cannot become a system where Clark creates every single advantage. Boston is a gifted passer from the interior, and when teammates trust that the next pass is coming, the offense becomes significantly harder to load up against. Now, this doesn't mean Indiana should suddenly build everything around Timpson after one huge night. That would be overreacting. It does mean she has provided evidence that her previous production wasn't something opponents can simply ignore. If those cuts continue to be available, Indiana has to keep rewarding them.
20-point streak to 19 games, one shy of A'ja Wilson's all-time record. This is Kelsey Mitchell in overtime, 20 seconds left. Takes it right to the rack. Oh, cross it up, Angel Reese. Look at this, look at this. Boom, blowing right by Angel Reese. Again, people really called Angel Reese an all-defensive type player. Cut it out. Cut it out. Stop glazing. That ain't all defense.
And then Kelsey Mitchell did what Kelsey Mitchell has been doing over and over again. She attacked. No hesitation, no waiting around for the perfect possession. She saw Reese in front of her, created the angle, and got to the basket. That overtime bucket also pushed Mitchell's run of 20-point games to 19, according to the broadcast commentary, putting her one away from the referenced league record held by A'ja Wilson. Whatever anyone thinks about Indiana's hierarchy, that level of scoring consistency demands respect. Mitchell's value becomes even clearer late in games because defenses cannot devote everything to Clark. If they trap Clark and allow Mitchell to receive the ball with a moving defense, Mitchell can punish the rotation before the defense resets. And that leads directly into one of Indiana's most important strategic advantages. Clark does not need to take every late shot to control late possessions. Sometimes her gravity is the action. If 2 defenders lean toward Clark and Mitchell gets a cleaner driving lane because of it, Clark has influenced the possession without touching the ball twice. That is why Indiana's closing offense should be built around forcing defenses to choose between their best threats instead of voluntarily removing those threats from the action. Remember that point because the decision Indiana made at the end of regulation went in almost the opposite direction.
Somebody that doesn't play defense, wow, manages to play. Isn't it weird? For somebody that is terrible at defense, Caitlin Clark sure seems to play defense pretty well. Ain't that the fact? Matchup on Allisha Gray. Hold on, before we get into this, just because I said her name, Allisha Gray she might be the biggest crybaby in the league. The biggest crybaby in the league. Cries more than Marina Mabry, cries more than Angel Reese, cries more than A'ja, cries more than Stewie, cries more than Caitlin Clark. She is the biggest baby in the league. She whines, she complains, she flails her arms out. If you put Allisha Gray and Caitlin Clark side by side, Allisha Gray makes Caitlin Clark look like a perfect little angel when it comes to going against the referees. That's how bad of a complainer Allisha Gray is. No dig at Caitlin, but damn, Allisha Gray is a wild complainer. Let's take a look at this stop, shall we? 50 seconds left to go. Allisha Gray goes right, stopped. Goes left, stopped. Spin, stopped. Has to force up a terrible jacked shot.
Before we get there, look at Clark on the other end. One criticism attached to her game has always been defense, and it's fair to scrutinize any high-usage guard on that side of the floor. But individual defensive possessions need to be judged for what actually happens, not by reputation. Here, Allisha Gray tries multiple answers. Right, cut off, left, cut off, spin, still no clean lane. Eventually, she is forced into a difficult attempt. Does one possession suddenly make Clark an elite defender? Of course not. That would be the same kind of overreaction we just rejected with Timpson. But possessions like this matter because the Fever do not necessarily need Clark to become their best perimeter stopper. They need her to avoid becoming the automatic target opponents expect to exploit. There is a huge difference between those two things. If Clark can hold her position, compete through actions, and force opponents to work instead of giving up immediate advantages, Indiana can keep more of its preferred offensive personnel on the floor without constantly trying to protect one matchup. And late in a tight game, one defensive stop can completely change which side feels the pressure. That happened here. Atlanta did not score easily enough in the fourth quarter to separate, and every empty possession gave Indiana another opportunity to flip the game.
Bricks it. This is something we see from Angel Reese every single game. Brick City. Earlier in the game, we saw Angel Reese matched up against Caitlin Clark on a screen. Caitlin Clark sees Angel Reese. Oh, this is easy. Step back. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Easy money. At my face. Caitlin Clark with a beautiful dime to Michaela Timpson. Whoop. Behind the back. Michaela Timpson bricks it. However, she ends up getting her own rebound, put back. Love to see it. Michaela Timpson's hustle is second to none on this team. Second to none on this team. She's all over the damn place. Caitlin Clark from way downtown. This is a logo bomb. Look at this. Dude, she's at least what? 7 to 10 feet behind the three-point line? At least 7 to 10 feet behind the three-point line?
Now look at how quickly Clark can attack different kinds of coverage. First, she sees Reese switched onto her and creates space on the perimeter. Then there's the pass to Timpson after manipulating the defense. Timpson misses the initial attempt, but stays with it and gets the second chance. Then Clark pulls from a distance where most defenders still feel like they have done their job simply by keeping a guard that far away. That combination is the nightmare. It's not just the logo range 3. If it were only the logo 3, teams would aggressively run her off the line and live with whatever came next. The problem is, what comes next is becoming more dangerous. Clark can attack the closeout. She can pull up. She can hit a roller. She can sling the ball toward the opposite side before the defense completes its rotation. So every time she proves she can score in another area, it makes the three-pointer harder to defend because opponents can no longer sell out completely to eliminate it. There is also a psychological component to those deep shots. A normal 3 forces a defender to guard the three-point line. Clark's range can force a defender several feet farther away from the paint. That creates more physical space behind the first defender, more room for cutters, more room for screens, more room for Mitchell to attack a tilted defense. Those shots are worth 3 points on the scoreboard, but the threat of them changes possessions where Clark never even shoots. That's one reason the Timpson connection could become so productive. If the floor is stretched vertically and horizontally, an intelligent interior cutter can live off the defensive confusion.
I don't really have too much complaints of Caitlin Clark's game. Even her turnovers didn't really seem too bad to me today. I wasn't blown away, but I think she played well. I don't think she had a bad game at all. At times, I mean, I know she shot over 20 times, at least 20 times, right? Yeah, she shot 9 for 20. Even though she shot 20 times, I still think that she could be more aggressive. I still think that she could be more aggressive. A few times I said, Caitlin, stop passing. Stop giving it to AB. She's 6 of 16. Stop. She can't make it. She just can't make it. Stop doing it. Here we go. Caitlin Clark, fadeaway, midi cash. Like I said, 3-level scorer, absolutely elite status this year. Caitlin Clark scoring from all 3 levels.
And this is where the conversation around Clark's aggressiveness gets complicated. 9 for 20 is not a low-volume shooting night. 20 attempts is real usage. Yet there were still moments where the possession seemed to ask Clark to keep attacking, and she chose the pass. Sometimes that is exactly the right basketball decision. The danger comes when Indiana confuses unselfishness with passivity. Clark's passing is one of her best weapons precisely because defenses fear her scoring. If she stops putting enough pressure on the basket, defenders can start playing her passing lanes differently. The ideal version is not Clark shooting every possession. It is Clark forcing the defense to believe she might. That is a subtle difference, but it decides games. You saw examples of the complete scoring package here. The deep 3 was there, the drive was there, the mid-range touch was there. The next stage is recognizing the exact moments when Indiana needs her to stay in scoring mode for one more dribble, instead of immediately giving the possession away. especially late, especially when the game tightens, especially when the alternative is asking a struggling teammate to create a shot against a set defense. And that brings us to the decision that could have turned this entire victory into a completely different headline.
Game on the line. Stephanie White, Austin Kelly, whoever. 4 seconds left. 4 seconds left. We saw them draw up a play for Caitlin Clark or Kelsey Mitchell or whoever wants to take the blame against the Washington Mystics when Caitlin Clark hit the game winner. We saw the first time against the Washington Mystics when Caitlin Clark sent it to overtime. They can do these out-of-bound plays to give it to Caitlin Clark or to give it to Kelsey Mitchell. Why on earth are we going to Aaliyah Boston? And this is the call, because Sophie Cunningham didn't even look at anybody else but Aaliyah Boston. She didn't wait for the play to unfold. She didn't wait for Caitlin Clark or Kelsey Mitchell to get open. We went to Aaliyah Boston to win the game. Somebody who was playing awful. Somebody who was not playing well. We went to her one-on-one against Angel Reese. And she gets stopped. She gets stopped.
4 seconds. Game tied. Indiana has Caitlin Clark, who already has 26 points and has shown she can score from every level. Kelsey Mitchell has been one of the most consistent scorers in the league during this stretch. And instead, the designed action immediately goes toward Aaliyah Boston in a one-on-one situation against Angel Reese. That is the part that should bother Indiana even after the win. Not because Boston is a bad player. She isn't. Not because she can never take the final shot. She absolutely can. The issue is context. Boston was 6 for 16. The possession started with almost no time available, and the play appeared to commit to that matchup rather than first forcing Atlanta to react to Clark or Mitchell. That is voluntarily making the defense's job simpler. Think about what Atlanta would rather defend with 4 seconds left. Would they prefer Clark coming off movement with the possibility of pulling from anywhere? Would they prefer Mitchell catching downhill with a scrambling defender? Or would they prefer a predetermined interior isolation where the matchup is already established and help knows exactly where the ball is going? The answer seems obvious. Even if Indiana wanted Boston to finish the possession, there were more complicated ways to reach her. Use Clark as a decoy. Make Atlanta switch. Force 2 defenders to show toward Mitchell. Create confusion before the entry pass. Instead, the possession became straightforward. Boston had to win the matchup. She didn't. And Indiana went to overtime. That is why this game is more useful than a comfortable 10-point victory. It exposed the exact late-game question Stephanie White and this roster still need to solve. Who initiates? Who finishes? And how do you make sure the opponent has to account for your most dangerous weapons before the final shot is taken? Because Indiana was fortunate enough to get another 5 minutes to answer those questions. In a playoff game, you might not.
It was Ryan Howard. 6 seconds left. Ryan Howard has the ball, getting guarded by Sophie Cunningham. Ryan Howard travels, right? I'm pretty sure this is a travel, right? This is a travel. One more time. This is a travels. Okay. Shoots it, airballs it right into Angel Reese's lap. And you know what everybody said? Collectively, ain't no fucking way. Ain't no fucking, bricked it. Point blank with a chance to win the game.
Now return to the shot that sent everything into overtime, because this sequence looks very different after seeing how Indiana handled its own final possession. Ryan Howard has the ball with seconds remaining. She launches a desperate attempt, misses everything, and the ball drops directly to Angel Reese near the basket. Reese has a chance to end it. She misses. There will be jokes about the finish, because Reese's efficiency around the rim has become a major talking point whenever she struggles, and missing a potential game winner from that distance is obviously painful. But the more meaningful takeaway for Indiana is that they gave Atlanta 2 opportunities inside one chaotic final sequence. That cannot become a habit. Once Howard's shot missed badly, the defensive possession should have been over. Instead, the rebound created another chance. Indiana escaped it. That difference between escaped and controlled matters. Good teams win ugly games. Great teams figure out why the game became ugly and remove those errors before they happen again. And Reese deserves the same balanced evaluation we gave Clark and Timpson. One missed layup does not define an entire player. But late-game moments are remembered because the stakes amplify everything. Make that shot and Atlanta wins in regulation. Miss it and Indiana gets another life. That is professional basketball. The margin is brutal. The internet will turn it into a rivalry clip. Coaches will turn it into film study. Indiana should focus on the second part.
Now, the Indiana Fever won. But you know what is also so glorious about this victory? The Atlanta Dream had a chance to win the game. Ryan Howard, or Alicia Gray, I think Ryan Howard, airballs a shot to win the game late. It lands in Angel Reese's lap, and collectively the whole world said, yeah, she ain't making that. Collectively, the whole world said, oh, Angel Reese has it? Oh, and it's a layup? Yeah, she's bricking that. And lo and behold, point blank range to win the game, we get a classic Angel Reese pray up and a brick.
So now we can answer the bigger question this game raised. Why did Indiana win? It wasn't because Clark single-handedly overwhelmed Atlanta for 45 minutes. It wasn't because Atlanta was incapable of competing. And it definitely wasn't because Indiana executed every late possession perfectly. Indiana won because several different strengths appeared at exactly the moments they needed them. Clark gave them shot creation and playmaking. Mitchell gave them relentless scoring pressure and an overtime attack when the defense was vulnerable. Timpson gave them efficient interior finishing, rebounding activity, cutting, and defensive versatility. The defense held Atlanta to only 9 fourth-quarter points. And when Indiana made a major mistake in its final regulation possession, Atlanta failed to punish it. That combination was enough for 95-91. But what makes this win genuinely interesting is what it could mean moving forward. The Fever now have evidence that Timpson can be more than an emergency option around the basket. If she continues reading Clark's drives this well, opposing bigs will have a harder time selling out toward Clark. They have another game showing that Mitchell's scoring reliability gives them a legitimate second late-game creator. They have more examples of Clark functioning as a three-level scorer rather than only a deep shot specialist. And they have a late-game play call that should immediately go into the film room under the category of what needs to be reconsidered. That's the strange beauty of overtime wins. They can make a team feel great while still revealing almost everything that needs fixing. The box score says Indiana survived Atlanta. The film says Indiana may be discovering a more dangerous offensive formula, but it still has to learn when to trust it. Because imagine the next version of that final possession. 4 seconds left, same score, same pressure. Clark's movement forces two defenders to communicate. Mitchell cuts through the weak side. Timpson occupies the rim. Boston becomes the second option instead of the predetermined first option. Now the defense has decisions to make. That is what elite late-game offense should create, decisions. The more decisions a defense has to make in 4 seconds, the greater the chance one defender makes the wrong one. Indiana's original possession asked Atlanta almost nothing, and the Fever were lucky that it didn't cost them the game. So the 95-91 final score deserves celebration. But the larger question is what Stephanie White takes from it. Does Indiana continue giving Clark more freedom to attack when she has a favorable matchup? Do they keep developing Timpson as a cutter and interior finisher? Do they use Mitchell's scoring gravity more intentionally in closing situations? And when another game comes down to one possession